What's up, Toilet Water Squad? I'm Big P and I'm streaming out some lemon water ice. If you're not from Philly, you might not know what this is, or you might know it by its more traditional name of Italian ice. Or if you are from Philly, you probably know it by its even more traditional name, water ice. I feel like I can't even do my own accent. If you don't know it at all, it's basically something between a snow cone and a slushie. It's super refreshing on a hot day, and it goes great with ice cream, usually vanilla, and something called a gelati. Most water ice flavors are fruit. Lemon and cherry are probably the most popular. Mango is kind of the favorite amongst people who know, but my personal favorite is actually chocolate. A lot of people from Philly would probably call that mental illness or maybe use other words, but I always got chocolate water ice as a child, and I especially loved it when it had chocolate chips in it. And I'm definitely gonna be making some of those flavors soon. This is my first time trying to make water ice, and I went with lemon because it felt like a nice, simple place to start. I wanted something easy so I could dial in a version that actually has that smooth, scoopable, small business quality texture. So let's get started. There's only a few ingredients. We got water, sugar, lemon, a little bit of corn syrup, a tiny bit of salt, some vodka, and I'm using stabilizers in mine. The stabilizers help you get a smoother texture and make that last longer, but I'll show you how to make it without those. For my stabilizers, I'm using Locust bean gum and Guar gum. You definitely don't have to use those, or if you have Xanthan gum from making ice cream, you can use some Xanthan gum instead. If you do use one of the stabilizer methods, then you just want to make sure that you mix the stabilizers into your sugar really well so that they don't clump up in the liquid. But if you're not using stabilizers, you don't have to worry about that. You're still gonna make water ice, it just won't be quite as smooth. All right, so I'm starting off with the granulated sugar. I'm putting in 170 grams, which is a little bit more than 3/4 of a cup. On top of that, I'm just going to add a pinch of salt, or just 1 gram. And then I'm gonna add my stabilizers. So like I said, you don't have to use these, but I'm gonna be using Locust bean gum and Guar gum. I'm starting off by putting in 0.2 grams of Guar gum, which is equal to about 1/8 of a teaspoon, and then 0.45 grams of Locust bean gum, which is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. If you wanted to use Xanthan gum instead of those stabilizers, you could use about 0.4 grams of Xanthan gum, which is equal to about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Once you get your stabilizers in, you want to mix it up really good. You want to use a whisk. I didn't use a whisk, but you want to use a whisk to help you break it all up and get it evenly dispersed, because you really don't want it to clump. If it does clump, you can hit it with a blender for a little bit, just like, like 10 to 15 seconds. You don't want to blend it too much, but if you mix it up well enough, it shouldn't clump. From there, I add 40 grams of light corn syrup. This is really important to make it scoopable and smooth. This isn't high fructose corn syrup, this is just light corn syrup. It's a different thing. The 40 grams of corn syrup is about 2 tablespoons. If you aren't using stabilizers, you might want to use 60 grams or 3 tablespoons of corn syrup. This could help make up for not using the stabilizers. And then the next ingredient is water. We're gonna add 500 grams of water, or 2 cups. You can sub in water if that's all you have. It's tradition. You wanna stir that all up. That's all the ingredients that we're gonna add before we heat the mixture. So we're gonna bring it over to the stove and put it on a medium to medium high heat. So I'm going to assume that most people aren't going to be using the stabilizers that I'm using. So basically all you need to do is heat this until all the sugar and everything dissolves. So if you just want to get it until it's like lightly steaming, that's probably good. But if you are using the same stabilizers as me, then you have to get this to 185 degrees Fahrenheit or 85 degrees Celsius. If you don't have a thermometer, you can probably boil it. Well, you don't want to boil it, but it'll be fine. Like if you're making ice cream, you don't want to boil it usually. Yeah, if you get this up to like simmering, then you'll know that you got to 185 degrees. You would need to do this with the stabilizers that I'm using, because Locust bean gum needs to get to 185 degrees Fahrenheit for it to hydrate properly. But if you're using Xanthan gum, you don't have to do that. It's a cold process stabilizer, so you just need to get it to steaming, basically, just to dissolve all the sugar and everything. You want to stir it around every now and then just to make sure that nothing's, none of the solids have sunk to the bottom or getting burned on the bottom of the pot. But you don't need to do it nearly as much as I'm doing it in this video. Once you have it heated to the temperature that your ingredients require, take it off the heat and pour it into a bowl. We're gonna let it sit in that bowl for about 10 minutes so that it cools down a bit. And while that's happening, we're gonna get our flavoring ready, which is our lemons. We don't wanna add the lemons while it's still this hot, because we wanna keep them as fresh of a flavor as possible. And this is gonna steam a bit while it's sitting, which is factored into the recipe. Like, we're gonna lose water from this steaming. So make sure that you don't cover it. You may have seen some stuff floating around in the liquid that I believe is stabilizer that clumped up. So you really got to mix it in there and, possibly blend it. Although I have seen it kind of clump up like this a bit when making ice cream, and then after putting it in the fridge overnight, it's all, gone. It's not clumped up anymore. So I'm not sure if it just needs to hydrate more in the fridge or if it just dissolves back into everything. But when I made this water ice, there wasn't clumps in it. And I don't think that there was the next day when I strained this out, but I strained it out, so that would get rid of the clumps as well if if they weren't already gone. But I mentioned vodka earlier. We're going to add that now. We are adding that because alcohol doesn't freeze, so this is going to help this not get icy in the freezer. This is another reason why we want the mixture to cool down, because alcohol will evaporate if it gets too hot. So we want that to cool down so that it doesn't evaporate. You can use whatever vodka you got. I'm using this New Amsterdam vodka because it's what I had. I think my aunt gave this to me like either during the pandemic or before the pandemic, because she accidentally bought it not realizing that it was like a cheap vodka. Look, I think it's like for college kids who want to drink something that's not in a plastic bottle. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't drink vodka, so I don't know. Drink whatever you want, legally and responsibly. But yeah, that was 10 grams of vodka, or about 2 teaspoons. And then we're gonna zest our lemons. I zested 2 full lemons for this. You wanna use a microplane for that, or if you don't have that, you could use like a cheese grater. And if you don't have either of those things, then I guess as a last resort, you could probably just use like a peeler, like a potato peeler or something, and just like put in like, thick peels of lemon. It might not be as strong of a lemon flavor, but it'll help. Most of the flavor does come from the zest, so I think it should work if you just use a peeler, but that's just a last resort. Whatever method you're using to get the zest, just make sure not to grate down to the white pith. Just try to get all the yellow. The white part of the lemon is going to be bitter. Put your lemon zest in the bowl with the vodka, and it looks like I got about 3 grams of lemon zest. You don't have to, just zest 2 lemons. Well, these are 2 big lemons. So if you have smaller lemons, maybe zest 3. Our next ingredient is lemon juice. So those same lemons that we zested, we're gonna cut them open and we're gonna juice them into that bowl with the zest and the vodka. We need 200 grams, or about 3/4 of a cup. I just barely, well, I almost got to 200, and it was good enough, so I was good with that, with these 2 big lemons. So if you have big lemons, maybe get 3 so that you have 2.5. And if you have small lemons, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 or 6, maybe probably 5 is like a safe number. Christ almighty, I'm really going at it on these lemons. All right, at this point, it's been more than 10 minutes of the water sitting out and cooling. So that's the water with the sugar and everything. And I'm pouring the lemon zest, the lemon juice, and the vodka into the water that we heated. I had seen a seed fall in there earlier, so I was trying to fish it out, and I did. But I was going to strain this tomorrow anyway, so it didn't really matter. Well, mix them all together and then cover it and put it in the fridge overnight so that it can cool. We want everything to be as cold as possible so that it freezes as quickly as possible, so that there's less time for ice crystals to form. So, I mean, you could just put this in the fridge for like, I don't know, like a few hours, and it should be cold enough, but I usually just do this at nighttime and then put it in the fridge overnight. And by usually, I mean when I'm making ice cream. This is the only time I've ever made water ice. All right, it's the next day, and I took the water ice mixture out of the fridge, and I'm straining it. You don't have to strain it. You can leave the lemon zest in there if you want to. It might look nice. I don't know. By the way, that reminds me, if you wanted to use food coloring, you could add just add like a drop of yellow food coloring into the lemon and vodka mixture. If you don't add the food coloring, it'll be like kind of clear, like a little bit cloudy, yellowy. You'll see. Well, you've already seen it actually at the beginning of the video. Then you want to pour it into your ice cream machine, and then it depends on what kind of machine you have and which recipe you followed. It might take like 20 minutes to churn it. Mine took about 10 minutes. I think the stabilizers help it churn faster, and just everything being cold helps a lot too. I'm gonna speed through most of this, but I'm gonna slow it down a few times throughout just to show you what it looks like at different stages, just so that if you're making this, you don't feel like, should this look like this? I don't know. Because there were parts where, I mean, it just looked like there was a bunch of ice crystals in this, like solid pieces of ice, but it ended up being fine. So I just don't want you to see that when you're making it and then be worried that you did it wrong. Also, I really didn't know when to take this out. I'll show you when I did take it out. And maybe somebody who knows who's made this before can tell me if I churned it for too long or what. But this right here is when I took it out. I was thinking about taking it out like much earlier, but it had barely been in there, so I felt like I needed to do it for longer. I don't know. The taste and texture was great, so I mean, it all worked out. When it's done churning, you just want to load it into your container. If you don't have ice cream containers, then you can probably just use Tupperware. And you want to, no matter what you're using, you probably want to put a piece of plastic wrap on top so that ice crystals don't form as easily. When I'm making ice cream, I usually use parchment paper on top, but for some reason, plastic felt like it made more sense for water ice. You can also just eat this now if you wanted to, but if not, if you didn't use any stabilizers, this will probably, you want to eat it within like a few days. If you did use stabilizers, it'll be best within a week, but it'll still be good for kind of a while. With all the water in this, I was surprised that it lasted as long as it's lasted, because I made this like 3 weeks ago, and I still have more than half of it. I just had some earlier today so that I could have a video of a gelati, and it was a little hard to scoop. Like, it was like kind of icy on top and hard, but once I like got it into the bowl, the texture was still great of the water ice. It wasn't like hard or icy. There wasn't any ice chunks. It was still very, very smooth. My parents were coming to visit me, and I churned this while they were flying out, and then the next day we tasted it. So this is us tasting it. You can see that it's like incredibly smooth. Like, I've never had water ice this smooth before, I don't think. I loved it. My parents loved it. Everyone I've given it to so far loves it. I don't know if I've given it to anyone yet who is not from Philly, who's never had water ice before. But when I do, I'll let you know how it goes. But I'm sure they'll like it. They just might not have the nostalgia. That was my mom and dad grabbing their water ice, and then this is my water ice. If you make this, let me know how it goes. Let me know what you think. If you have any requests on other water ices I should make, let me know. I'm thinking about doing like cocktail water ices, like maybe like a margarita water ice, you know, like a Negroni water ice, different types of cocktails. So if you're interested in anything like that, or ice creams, or just any food stuff, you know, follow me, and I'll put videos out. This is me trying to scoop it today after it's been in the freezer for 3 weeks. It's kind of hard, and I just threw out what was on top. I just put it in the sink because I just assumed it would be icy, because usually, you know, if it gets icy, it'll be icy on top. But then I tried scooping the next layer, and it was kind of hard to scoop that too. But when I got it in the bowl and started eating it, it was very soft and smooth. I took too much time scooping the water ice, and my vanilla ice cream started to melt. But it was delicious. I mean, I think a gelati might be my favorite thing in the world. You can tell by this video here that there's still no chunks of ice in the water ice after 3 weeks with the stabilizers. Locust bean gum and Guar gum, just to be clear. I don't know how Xanthan gum will, you know, how long that will last. But it was a beautiful day today, so I took this outside and had a lovely time. It was great. If you've made it this far in the video, you gotta subscribe. All right, I'm actually done now. Bye, thank you for watching.